The Lost World of South America. The world is far less a mystery than it was a century ago, but it still holds a few locations that baffle scientists and researchers. Early explorers spoke of mysterious mountains towering above South America's jungle. Such stories inspired Arthur Conan Doyle to write The Lost World, a novel set in an isolated place still inhabited by dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were fiction, but the mountains are real. The mountains are called Tepuis, or House of the Gods, in the language of the local Paimon. Rising thousands of meters into the sky over the jungles of Guyana, Brazil, and Venezuela, these are dramatic sandstone structures, called mesas by geologists, with flat tops and steep sides. Tepuis are so remote that they have prevented researchers from exploring them fully. They truly are among the last unexplored places on Earth. The flat summits, ranging from a few square kilometers to dozens and even hundreds of square kilometers, used to be connected. Some scientists even believe that these Tepuis have life forms from the ancient supercontinent known as Gondwana, which may have included what we know today as South America, Africa, Antarctica, Australia, and other landmasses. A few people have been there, but really not a lot, considering what they are, among the oldest formations in the world. Jesus Rivas, a biology professor, said, "They are like a place where time stopped. In the fauna, you can see South America evolving for the last 300 million years." The high altitude and the ancient age of the Tepuis make them extremely interesting to biologists. They are frequently described as islands in the sky, covered in tropical greenery that supports a wide range of wildlife. Indeed, many of the species that live on top of the Tepuis are found nowhere else on the planet. But because they are so hard to reach, scientists have only begun to scratch the surface of the enormous diversity on and around the Tepuis. One question still mystifies scientists. How did animals and plants end up in such an inaccessible place? Some scientists believe in the lost world theory, that these creatures have been living there since the Tepuis were born. But in a paper published in the journal Evolution, studies on tree frogs exclusive to these Tepuis showed that they had climbed up slowly over a few million years. Unfortunately, until further studies are conducted, scientists can only speculate. People who want to visit these Tepuis can arrange special tours, but it will require enormous effort to get there. To make a comparison, Angel Falls in Venezuela, the tallest waterfall in the world, is probably the most popular tourist destination in the Tepuis region. However, the base of the falls can only be reached after flying into the jungle and hiking for hours. When the creators of Up, a movie which featured the Tepuis, visited to get a feel of the place, they chose Roraima, the easiest of the Tepuis to climb. Bob Peterson, one of the climbers, said, "It was like your worst nightmare. It was like a 6 or 7 hour climb to the top, and I had on way too much gear. When we got to the top, we had to hike across uneven terrain for another hour and a half. It was already dark when we got to our camp, and suddenly, from out of the darkness, we saw this cave lit by candles, and there was warm soup waiting for us. When we saw our tents, most of us just sat down and started crying. We were so happy to be there.
Is spontaneous human combustion possible? It happens something like this. Someone finds a badly burnt body in a poorly ventilated room. The body is sitting in a chair or lying on a bed or the floor. The upper body of the victim is a heap of ashes, but one or more mostly undamaged hands or feet may be visible as well. A layer of blackened grease covers the ceiling and walls above the victim's head. But fire damage in the room is limited to a small area right around and above the body. Objects only a meter away remain untouched by the blaze. Police investigators find no obvious source or cause for the fire. This scene describes a typical case of spontaneous human combustion, SHC, in which a human body is supposedly able to burst into flames and to burn to almost nothing entirely on its own. In most SHC cases, there are no witnesses to see how the person caught fire. In rare cases, the observer, who is often a friend or family member, tries to put out the fire. Occasionally, the victim survives. Again, there is no clear outside cause. The blaze appears to start from within the victim's own body. This phenomenon is actually nothing new. A 1763 book by Frenchman Jonas Dupont with the title De Incendi Corporis Humani Spontaneus describes in detail a number of cases of SHC. A century later, Charles Dickens used SHC to kill off one of the characters in his novel, Bleak House. A number of more recent unexplained deaths have helped to keep the theory of SHC alive. One of the latest cases was of Michael Flaherty, a 76-year-old man who was found burned to death in his home in Galway, Ireland, on 22nd December 2010. Police arrived to find mostly ashes, with his head near an empty fireplace. The room was undamaged by the fire. After a thorough investigation, the coroner recorded Mr. Flaherty's death as a case of spontaneous human combustion. People have tried to explain these mysterious deaths in various ways. Some have said that SHC can be set off by a buildup of electricity or gases within the body. The most reasonable explanation seems to be the wick or candle theory. This says that under certain circumstances, the human body can function as sort of an inside-out candle. That is, the fabric in a person's clothing acts like the wick, and the fat in a person's body like the wax in the candle. A spark from a nearby source could set off a small fire, and the burning clothes would cause a person's body fat to melt, adding fuel to the fire. In a poorly ventilated room, the body can burn for hours and cause the kind of damage seen in many of the supposed SHC cases. In this scenario, the combustion is not spontaneous at all and is always caused by some external fire source. In a recent experiment, the criminologist Dr. John DeHaan put the wick theory to the test. DeHaan wrapped a dead pig, chosen because the body fat of a pig is similar to that of a human, in a blanket, poured gasoline over it, set it on fire, and let it burn in a badly ventilated room. After burning for several hours, the body of the pig was reduced to ashes, much like the bodies of many supposed SHC victims. DeHaan's experiment did not persuade everyone that the wick theory explains SHC. Some believe there are still too many unanswered questions in many of the cases. What about the situations where no external source of fire was found, or where victims have burst into flame in front of witnesses? Until scientists come up with a theory that explains all of these circumstances, many will likely continue to believe in the possibility of spontaneous human combustion.